Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 10, number
We're back
10.
after a 2-week hiatus between travel and all kinds of other stuff. We're finally back on the horse.
We apologize for not getting our stuff together, but however, this kind of works out because more content, NBA craziness continues, and, there's always some wacky story to talk about. So,
Yeah. So, where did we want to start? Oh, let's talk about before we forget about it. So you were at the Bills Chiefs game 2 weeks ago.
correct.
He was at the stadium. He was at Arrowhead Stadium.
Yes, made it to Arrowhead for the first time in my life. It was really awesome. A couple things stand out. I mean, number one, the fans are. I mean, it's like a college football atmosphere. It is really intense, really fun. Everybody's excited. Going to games in South Florida, I'm happy to say that Kansas City very well behaved. Very well behaved. Not many fights in the stands.
It's kind of like you don't just necessarily move there. Maybe you grew up there, or if you do move there, like you're there for a while. South
Right.
Florida is very transient. You have a bunch of people from other places, so yeah, you don't get. There's not really, I mean, Dolphins fans. I don't know. When you go there, you feel like there are a bunch of people who are fans of this team, but it seems like Kansas City, they're really fans of the team. So, kind of like St. Louis or something,
Yeah, so kind of a strange game. There was a 1 hour delay at halftime for weather. So,
Right.
Which made that kind of interesting. There were a good amount of Bills fans there, honestly. When you looked out into the crowd, you saw a lot of blue shirts. Just takeaways from the game. Number one, Josh Allen is huge. He looks bigger than most linebackers out there. When he runs with the ball, I'd be afraid to tackle that guy.
Yeah.
So, kind of what stood out to me, the Chiefs have some issues. From what I saw, their offensive line kind of struggled. Every play Mahomes made, he's basically running out of the pocket. He never got a chance to really stand still and throw the ball. And on the other side, Josh Allen looked like he had all day to throw. So, it was I think the Chiefs have some issues. The other thing that kind of really jumped out at me was Buffalo kind of came into that game, and the way they played from the beginning, their attitude was basically, "You're not going to stop us. We're just going to run the ball right at you. Like, we're going to come right at you. You're not going to stop us." And they never did. The game got.
Yeah, well, their defense is really bad. It's not just a little here and there. They need to fix some things. No, they're really bad. They don't have now. If you listen to Nick Wright, all they got to do is stop turning the ball over, and they'll be fine.
Right.
So, they have been turning the ball over a lot, but Mahomes is trying to make all those plays because they can't run the ball and they can't rely on their defense to stop anybody. So, yeah, they got some serious problems, and they got to play. Who are they playing next? They're playing
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay. Look, Derrick Henry has been running the ball all over people. He just ran the ball all over the Bills. So if he gets going running the ball, they're in trouble because they can keep Kansas City off the field, and then Tannehill is really good off play action off of Derrick Henry running the ball. So, I floated this out there a little while ago, and maybe it's still kind of crazy, but the Chiefs could potentially miss the playoffs. Okay, because think about it this way: they're 3-3?
3-3.
3-3. Okay, so say they lose to Tennessee, you're 3-4. Now, they're not going to win out the rest of their games, okay? So you got to figure they got at least 5 losses, maybe 6, okay?
Right.
Once you start getting into 6, 7 losses, it becomes, San Diego's beaten you once. If they beat you again, then they get the tiebreaker. The Raiders, we'll see. The Raiders, Derek Carr's look pretty good. So, it's not that far out of the realm of possibility, and then you got teams like the Bengals and the Browns, who are all kind of floating around the same spot. So it's kind of like maybe you run out of, anyway, it's still kind of a nuts idea because they're 3-3. They could end up beating the Titans and, be fine. But it is kind of, I think that's kind of, no one's really talking about that. And I'm like, that could potentially happen. Once you kind of get up into that 6-7 loss range, it's kind of, getting into the playoffs is kind of murky. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I think, I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think there's enough good teams in the AFC to keep them out. Not turning the ball over will help, but they have issues that they're going to have to work out. They're not going to be able to win playoff games this way. You can't, you can't just give up all kinds of yards. I don't think that highly of Tennessee, but it's going to be difficult for Kansas City to stop them because of the defense.
Well, I mean, Tennessee's what are they, 4-2?
Yep.
I mean, they just beat the Bills. I mean, you can say, well, they probably wouldn't have beaten them if Josh Allen hadn't slipped. Okay.
Right.
But I mean, they were right there. So, and the Bills are a really good team. So, and I just think that, remember Kansas City, they just, teams have run the ball all over them. So I just, it seems like it's a matchup that kind of favors the Titans a little bit, but we'll see.
Right.
I still think the Bills are, between the Bills and the Cardinals, those are probably the best teams in the league right now because the Cardinals just blown everybody away. So, which, that's why I don't understand some of these, like, Nick Wright's doing his NFL tiers and Colin's doing his herd hierarchy. And I mean, he ranks he's ranking the Bills and the Cardinals pretty high. Nick Wright keeps, putting the Rams and the Packers above the Bills. It's like the Bills, the Cardinals, and then like somebody else, and then he puts the Cowboys at the top of it, which I just don't get it. Like the Cowboys, they got talent on offense. They're scoring points. They're making plays on defense. They got that one cornerback who's really good, keeps getting interceptions. I'm like, okay, they're a good team. They're probably going to win that division. They're a playoff team. They could possibly win one playoff game. But I'm supposed to rely on them to win a really big, they haven't beaten anybody good, really. I mean, they beat the Chargers and the Chargers kind of gave that game away. So I don't understand the whole, I'm trying not to be too biased toward my whole Cowboys are always mediocre, but I mean, they really haven't beaten anybody. So,
yeah, you make a good point, but what I will say is, having watched them played, they're better than mediocre. The defense is not. The defense used to be a huge problem. It's not. It's not great, right? They're not going to win games because of their defense, but however, the defense is good. Like it's they the three guys, the corner Trayvon Diggs is playing great. That rookie that they drafted, the linebacker Micah Parsons, is really good. They have a couple good pass rushers. The defense is not a pushover. So if you have
the defense is definitely better. I mean, they're a talented team on both sides of the ball, and they're going to win that division. And they probably, what do they have? They got one loss. They're 5-1. I mean, they probably finished the year, 12-5, 13-4, probably based. I mean, that division's so bad that, so they get a home playoff game, and then whoever they're playing, they probably got a good shot to beat them. But I question, can they beat the Rams? Can they beat the Cardinals? Can they beat
Packers?
I think they could beat the Packers. I kind of, can they beat the Bucks? They played the Bucks really close. So, maybe I need to see more. I don't know. Maybe that's where I'm at. Of course, I could say that about the Cardinals because Kyler Murray's never made the playoffs before, but they've just been blowing everybody out. So,
they have some. Listen, they have things that concern you, right? Mike McCarthy's not doing a great job of clock management, which I have to say is kind of overblown. Most regular season games, it really doesn't matter that much. I understand the concern, though. They're going to get into a big game, and he's going to screw up the clock or whatever. What would concern me is in that Patriots game, they threw an interception in the end zone and fumbled the ball at the goal line. They should have won that game by 20 points.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They played the Patriots. The Patriots aren't a good team.
Right.
Like they're not very good. So and then I mean we can get into the fourth down thing, but the Cowboys' first drive of the game, they went for it in their own territory and they didn't get it and they gave the Patriots a short field. It's like, why would you give a limited quarterback and a limited offense a short field? Like, I mean, I feel like they just basically gave away points, so I mean, we can get into the fourth down thing, but I just, that was kind of questionable to me, but that's not necessarily on Mike McCarthy because everybody seems to be doing that now. So,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not gonna, I'm not going out saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I will say that the way the NFL is now, their team is positioned pretty well.
All right, that's fair.
So
yeah,
I think
I feel like I need to see more, and maybe I'm leaning too far in one direction, and I'm being biased towards what's happened in the past. But we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about this before, but teams going for it on fourth down. I think.
Yeah, I was pissed off about this last week. I was yelling at the TV.
Yeah. So I think me bringing that up, I think that was the tip of the iceberg because since I brought that up, the whole thing has exploded. It's gotten completely out of control. So go ahead. I'll let you have the floor. You've got.
Last week, what was really pissing me off was I was watching the Dolphins Jaguars game, and the Jaguars were down there. It was like 4th and 2, and they were inside like the 5. Okay, and it was. It was 17-13, I think. So, or no, 20 to. No. It was 20-17. It was 20-17 Dolphins. Okay, so the Jaguars are down there driving. A field goal ties the game. Okay, Jacksonville at that point was winless. They hadn't won a game. Urban Meyer never won a game as an NFL coach. Trevor Lawrence hasn't won a game as an NFL quarterback. Okay, you're all the way in freaking London. Okay. You're playing the Dolphins. The Dolphins are not a great team. Okay. The Dolphins are not a team that scores a bunch of points. It's not, look, he played well in the game against the Jaguars. Okay. He had a few good drives. He made some good throws, but it wasn't like they were just, I mean, granted, he had just gone down the field and scored a touchdown, but it's not like you're thinking, okay, well, he's just definitely going to get the ball and go down and score another touchdown, So didn't make any sense. You're winless. You're kind of on the road. You're in a weird situation playing in another country. Okay. Just kick the field goal and tie the game.
Right.
Okay. And then put the pressure on the Dolphins to go down and try to get a field goal or a touchdown or whatever, So they go for it on 4th and 2. They don't get it. Okay. So now anyway, they end up winning the game, but I forget they had to kick like a 50-something yard field goal to tie the game at 20, which you wouldn't have had to do that if you had already, or you would have been kicking that to try to take the lead. Okay. So anyway, they have to then get the ball back. And then they had to do some crazy thing with like 5 seconds where they threw a pass and the guy goes down and they call timeout. And it's like, you guys wouldn't have had to do any of that, if you had just kicked the field goal. They're like that. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, but that doesn't piss me off as much as the going for it in your own territory, which I was just talking about in the Patriots-Cowboys game. Like, you basically just gave points away. Like, I'm not saying you should never go for it in your own territory. I kind of like the aggressiveness with it if you really feel like, our offense is one of the best parts of our team. But I'm more okay with that if you're already at midfield. But if you're at your 20 or 25 or 30 or something, like, what are you doing? Because if you don't get that, you're basically giving away points. And I don't think that's, if it's late in the game, okay. But, that stuff just really, really kind of, I'm watching it going, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, I don't know what happened where we're not interested in 3 points anymore. 3 points is just meaningless.
Sometimes it makes sense to go for it, but it's situational. Like in that Jaguars game, just kick the field goal, man. Just tie the game. It's not like your defense couldn't stop the Dolphins at all. Like what? So yeah, it's just it's situational. You sometimes 3 points are fine. It depends. If you're getting your butts kicked and your defense has shown no ability to stop them, then if you're that deep, and you could score a touchdown, then yeah, maybe go for it. If you don't get it, fine. You're probably going to lose anyway. So
Right. It's totally what I think we've missed is we're just using analytics to decide this, and it's totally situational. It has
Yeah,
there's no way to have enough data on every situation because it depends on what time of the game you're in, how big, how important is the game, right? How good is your team? How good is their team? There's all these things like, so San Diego's playing Baltimore last weekend, and San Diego's getting killed. They're down 18 in the third quarter, so they went for 4th and 7 or whatever. I can understand that.
that's fine.
I don't think it's
Although they went for it early in the game when the game wasn't out of hand. They went for it in their own territory, I believe, which I'm kind of like, I mean, yeah, Justin Herbert's really good, but I don't know. It's one of those things that's like, okay, but I mean, it becomes a point where you're giving away points, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't just give away points like that. I mean, if this is a professional league, like giving away points like that, you're kind of making it more likely you're going to lose.
Well, and the other thing is we're acting like it's no big deal if you don't get the 4th down. If you don't get the 4th down, that's the same thing as you throwing an interception or fumbling the ball to them.
Throwing an interception deep where you could be close to getting a field goal or a touchdown. Right. If you're at your own 30 and you throw an interception, and they get it down at like their 35, it's like you punted. That's not that big of a deal. But throwing an interception down there, like a red zone interception, is a really big deal because you've just given away points. They could end up scoring. So then it becomes like a 3 or 7 point swing, based on you going for it on 4th down. So, or you throwing an interception. So it's kind of the same thing with going for it on 4th down and not getting it.
Right. Going for it on 4th down and not getting it, missing a field goal. Those are turnovers. Like they don't put them in the turnover category, but that's what they are. So,
yeah.
You can't act like you losing that opportunity to get those 3 points. That's more important sometimes than you getting a 4th down, especially early in the game.
Yeah.
Now in the second half or in the fourth quarter, there's not much I'm going to really disagree with there.
Yeah, well, especially if the game's out of hand, you're really behind. You need to kind of you don't know how many opportunities you're going to get. But early in the game, it's like, yeah, you're going to get 7, 8 more possessions, maybe more, depending on how the game plays out. Like, why you're just giving one of them away? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. All right. So bunch of rumors this week about Deshaun Watson maybe traded to the Dolphins or another team.
Yeah, because the trade deadline is the end of the month,
November 2nd.
Okay.
So we still have about 7-8 days.
Yeah.
So,
week and a half.
Story that came out, both you and I are very skeptical of the entire thing because story came out this week. They're gonna finish the trade within a week or two before the deadline. Which, I mean, if you follow any of this stuff, anytime a trade happens, they don't announce it'll be done within the next week.
Yeah, they don't.
Nobody does that because why would you do that? You're putting it out. You're making everybody think you're going to complete it, and now the pressure's on you. I think this is first of all, this isn't the first time. The rumors have been out since the offseason, since the draft.
Yeah, there was the whole thing the week before the season, So, yeah, this kind of stuff comes out. I feel like it's just talk radio, talking head stuff.
So this is 6 months that we've been talking about this, and nothing's happened. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go out on a limb. Nothing's going to happen. Because, first of all, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you trade for a guy who's got all kinds of legal trouble? You don't know if or when he can play. Like, let's say he can't play this season. So let's say next season he works it out, and then he'll probably get suspended. So you might have to go almost 2 seasons without him actually playing for you, even if you trade for him. So I was listening to
Who's leaking this stuff?
Oh, I think Houston's leaking it.
It's leaking from somewhere. So,
yeah, I totally think Houston's leaking it because they want it to seem like, oh, we're about to make a trade to try to get other teams to come in and give a better offer. That's who's leaking it. The Dolphins aren't leaking this. They don't want this stuff out there with their, when they're trying to see if Tua is good enough or whatever. They don't need that.
Salvage whatever's left of their season.
Right. They're not interested in that. So, and I was listening to the Ryan Russillo podcast. He had Jeff Darlington on. Jeff Darlington's a, well-known, really good NFL reporter. And he basically said that the Dolphins owner is not the one pushing this, is what he's been told. Even though a whole bunch of people have said differently, that the owner is the one that's all over this. Well, if that's the case, they would have made the trade already.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely ridiculous. And then Flores, the Dolphins coach, comes out and says, "No, Tua is our guy." So, I don't think, we'll come back on here and I will apologize if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. I don't think there's any way he's getting traded anywhere. So I think this will all be a moot point. The other thing I wanted to mention was that so Peter King was on the herd.
Yeah, I heard that whole segment. Yeah.
The other day, and
good points. He's just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. This is ridiculous, just based on, when is he going to be able to play? And then they made the point about, you're going to give up on Tua after 12 games, which that's a fair point. I mean, we've obviously criticized Tua a lot, but I'll actually agree in a certain sense. Like, it probably is too soon to say whether or not he can be a, solid starting quarterback. Okay. As far as him being an elite quarterback, I'm done with that conversation. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that'll ever be the case. But in terms of him being a solid starting quarterback, that may be possible. Okay. I mean, if the offensive line is okay, and you're actually protecting him, then okay. I mean, because look, against Jacksonville, he looked pretty good. Okay. And I've seen him make some good throws. I saw him make some good throws last year. Okay. So it's possible he can be a passable starter. And why would you give up after only 12 games? I can for comparison's sake, like Baker Mayfield, it's kind of like, well, he's had, over 50 starts. So you kind of have a better idea of what he is, I mean, I know there's still questions about it because he just had a good year last year, and it's like, okay, but after that much time, you can kind of make a decision one way or the other. But after 12 starts, there's been some things I've seen where it's like, okay, that looks pretty good. That's like, you could maybe be a passable NFL starter for a while with Tua. So, we'll see.
Well, what Peter King said was, how could you possibly know that he's not the guy? And to me, like, I get what he's saying, but you can see special. You can see, you can tell.
That's the point I'm making. I don't think he's not an elite quarterback. I think that conversation is done. Okay. The conversation about whether he can be a passable starter, which first of all is a ridiculous conversation anyway, because they drafted him number 5. He should be an elite quarterback if you draft him number 5. But still, can he be a passable NFL starter?
But that's not the question.
Yeah.
I get what he's saying, but that's not the question. No, if he's not going to be great, then who cares? Like, we need to stop. We need to stop pretending.
But I think other people are making that point. I think they're saying, well, he could still be a starter, and it's like, well, fine, but we didn't. That's not why the team drafted him.
No. The sports writers, Peter King, made that point. The Dolphins aren't making that point. No, nobody from them is saying that. This is so. How could you possibly know he's not the guy? Name me the quarterback who we're all going, yeah, I don't think he's going to work out. And 3 years later, he's great. Tell me who he is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't.
I'll wait.
Go ahead. Well,
no, I said I'll wait. Go ahead.
We didn't think that Tannehill was, that much of anything, and he's actually gone on to be a pretty decent quarterback.
We didn't think he's great, and guess what? He's still not great.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, we didn't think that. Yeah, absolutely.
And we drafted him in the top 10.
Yeah.
So the whole argument, the people are now changing the argument to try to. It's almost like to try to defend him. How could you possibly know that? Because you can tell. I'm sorry, this isn't 20 years ago. We know you knew the first game with Justin Herbert. You're like, whoa, this is, you know what I mean? Justin Fields, I can already tell. Okay? Yeah, he's kind of a mess, and the team is a mess, and they don't really play very well, but he makes plays happen. He makes things happen, even though his offense is pretty bad. So, I don't think it's a mystery. I think we choose to make it a mystery. Well, maybe if and no, the ship has sailed. And the fact that they're talking about trading is
they do mental gymnastics with stats. I've been seeing a bunch of stuff on Facebook. There's some different pages that sometimes pop up in my news feed, and like they're saying, well, Tua is 7-4 as a starter, and his yards per completion or something isn't that low. It's like, well, dude, he's played 2 games this year, so you're comparing his, like his completion percentage was pretty good in the Patriots game and then in the Jaguars game. So like, it's like, oh well, it's better than Josh Allen. It's like, really, you think he's better? He's anywhere near Josh Allen? Come on.
Yep.
Like,
Listen.
Like, they're 7-4, and I'm just like, I commented on a couple of things. I'm like, they're like, how do we know Tua's not the guy? I've seen him; he looks pretty good, and I'm just like, guys, or how do we know that Herbert's so much better than him? And it's like, Herbert didn't win that many games last year, and it's like, guys, are you watching? Like, you just watch just watch them play. You can tell, okay? It's not that hard. It's like with Lamar Jackson. Do I need to tell you that Lamar Jackson is special? Just watch him play for 5 minutes, okay? Like, And then I love the whole thing that people they do these mental gymnastics where it's like, I can get in a conversation with somebody and be like, you realize that usually to win the Super Bowl, you need a really elite quarterback, right? Yeah. Okay. So should the Dolphins keep Tua, like re-sign him like to an extension or something? Well, I don't know. Is he an elite quarterback? Well, I don't really. It's like, really, come on, dude. Really? Like, you can't, you got to make decisions about this stuff. Like, it's not,
what I find
around like,
right. Yeah. No, what I find really interesting though, is that Jeff Darlington was saying that, that the rest of the NFL outside of Miami has pretty much they're of the same mind that we are. That okay, they made the wrong pick and this isn't going to work. But I guess locally, like they're most the loudest Dolphin fans, they're in favor of Tua. They're like, you can't take. What do you mean? We can't get rid of him. So I guess that Clark, you and I are some of the. There's not as many dissenting voices in Dolphin fan land about it, which I thought was kind of interesting. If the rest of the NFL's out on him, but the Dolphins are defending him.
If it was like 15 years ago, I might actually be on their side. But here's the problem, Dolphins fans, and I don't understand. People just have a short memory; they don't remember anything. Okay, if you've been a Dolphins fan for the last 20 years, you've seen one regime comes in, they draft a quarterback, he's not the guy. Fire everybody. New regime comes in, they draft a quarterback, he's not the guy. New regime comes in, they draft a quarterback, he's not the okay. So we had Chad Henne, and he just wasn't the guy. He wasn't terrible, but he just wasn't the guy. Okay. They have Tannehill. Tannehill could have had more success in Miami if the Dolphins knew what the fuck they were doing. They literally don't. They can't seem to draft anybody good around quarterbacks. They don't, they don't seem to develop quarterbacks very well. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Okay. And then, God, what else? Oh, and then it's been, now we got Tua. We had Fitzpatrick for a little bit there, stopgap, and then we get Tua. So I don't understand how Dolphins fans are just going, oh, well, we don't really know. Guys, they were saying the same stuff about Tannehill and Chad Henne. We were like 3 years into Tannehill, and they're just like, well, we don't know yet. It's like, guys, this is not the 80s anymore. You don't take 4 years to decide or learn if a quarterback's really good enough, okay? You kind of know after like year 1 or 2, and then it's like, okay, let's see in year 3, does he improve more? Like Josh Allen, he kept getting better and better and better, right? But you see it every year. So, like, I don't, people are just, I guess, loyal to the team or whatever, but I'm just like, guys, you really think the Dolphins can win? They can beat really good teams the way that they play? Like, really? With Tua there? Like, really? So, whatever. People get lost in stats, and then they forget games that they watched. If you try to bring up, well, do you remember how we looked in this game? And they're just like, no, I don't remember that game. It's like, okay, well, what are we arguing about then? You're not looking at all the data. So I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, the truth is we're just haters, and this should be called the Hater Podcast. And
I find it kind of funny that I feel like I keep seeing articles about, what's wrong with the Dolphins. Like, there was an article on the Ringer, like, what the hell's wrong with the Dolphins? It looked like they had the blueprint and everything was going well. And then it was really funny because the article was pointing out, it's like everybody thought the Dolphins defense was really good last year. No, they weren't actually. They got a bunch of turnovers last year. Their yards per game and like a couple other things are very similar to this year. The difference is they got a bunch of turnovers last year. They're not getting, which turnovers, as if you follow the NFL a little bit, you realize turnovers are really unpredictable. And it's one of those things where you could have one year where you get a bunch of turnovers, and then the next year things regress back to the mean. So, that's kind of been going on with the defense, and then of course they were talking about, it doesn't help that you watch Tua and then you watch Justin Herbert and you realize, oh, wait a minute, they could have drafted him and they didn't, so more and more people are kind of coming to that. But yeah, I think locally it's, for whatever reason, the Dolphins fans are like, oh, no, he's the guy. And it's just like, okay. So anyway, we should probably, that's to it. We seem to do that every podcast.
I was right about that from when he was in college. I'm right about it now. So if I'm wrong one day, I'll come back and apologize. But I got news. That's not going to happen. Yeah. Anyway, so NBA started. So,
yes, NBA. Let's get to that.
So going to be, looking forward to this season. Hopefully, the Heat can have a good year.
They kick the crap out of the Bucks, but again, it's a regular season game, so
Right. So, do you want to talk about the Ben Simmons situation? Do you have a?
Sure, I guess sure. So he didn't report to camp, and then he did because they weren't going to pay him. He wasn't going to get all his money, so and then they they kicked him out of practice.
Yep.
Which I've been reading some stuff that people are saying this is all for show for some reason. I don't, it's all some sort of act.
It could be.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and then he said he met with the team on Friday and said he's not mentally ready to play. So I think what's going to happen is, first of all, I just want to say that I'm not taking shots at mental health. I'm not saying that mental health isn't important, and I think he has mental health issues. I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. But that being said, this is a bit of a smokescreen here. I don't think the team wants to let him play, and I think he just wants to get paid. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can say you can do this. You can say you have an injury. Whatever you want to do. I've said from the beginning, as soon as last season ended, you can't bring him back to Philadelphia. If this was New Orleans or Charlotte or Denver or another smaller market or a market that's not like Philadelphia, you could do it. But New York, Philly, Boston, you can't. It's not going to work. The whole thing is going to be a disaster. You can't play him at home games. The fans are going to boo. The fans are on the team's side on this. They are not supporting the guy who doesn't shoot. So, so I think it's a bit of a mess, and I think that I understand what the Philadelphia 76ers are doing, saying, "Hey, we're not going to just roll over. We're not going to just trade this guy. We're not going to." And I get it. I understand what they're saying, but at the end of the day, the only people that are going to be hurt are them.
Yeah,
Ben Simmons is going to get paid regardless. So they can continue to posture. They can continue to stare at him. They're not going to get a great deal in a trade. It's just going to be a drag on everybody. And Daryl Morey, the general manager, coming out on the radio and saying, "Everybody, buckle up. This is not going to change anytime soon. This could take years." I mean, first of all, it's absolutely ridiculous. There is no way you're putting up with this nonsense for years. There's no way. So. Yeah. I'm not supporting Ben Simmons. I think you sign a contract. I think you need to try to work it out with the team, and you need to show up and play. You need to show up and do your job, and I don't think he's even going to do that. Yeah,
no.
So that being said,
he seems to be one of those guys who likes getting paid, and he likes the I'm an NBA player, and that's kind of the deal. Which. Do what you want to do. It's your life, it's your career. Do whatever you want. I'm not going to sit there and demand that you be as committed as, Kobe or something. But fine, whatever. Do what you're going to do. But yeah, the 76ers, I mean, how long is Embiid's health going to hold up? So look, just the Eastern, think about it this way. Okay. The Eastern Conference. Okay. Brooklyn doesn't have anybody to deal with Giannis, and they don't really have anybody to deal with Embiid, okay? So really what you need to do is make sure that they're healthy and then just surround them with shooters and the defense that you need to compete with these other teams, okay? Because, again, I know people are going to try to act like Milwaukee's some sort of world-beating team. They're really not. Okay, Giannis is extremely dominant. He's now one of the 75 best players in the history of the league. Okay, but outside of that, the rest of the team's not exactly that reliable. Drew Holiday, he had some good games, but it was here and there. It wasn't, consistently every night was a good game. They're just a team that plays hard. Okay, they lose one night, they just come out and play harder the next game. And Giannis is really good, and then Middleton maybe hits some shots and they kind of win, But they're not just going to blow through the Eastern Conference, okay? So if you got Embiid, and you just get enough shooters and stuff around them, you could potentially compete with Milwaukee. You could potentially look. I think Brooklyn's probably going to win the East if you have Kevin Durant and Harden healthy, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think that, because remember, they don't play defense that well, and I think they're somewhat limited. They're really top heavy in terms of being really, built on James Harden and Kevin Durant, which is fine. You can win a title that way, but it's not going to be easy. So if you're Philadelphia or Milwaukee, either of those three teams, you could get to the finals. Okay. You just got to have the right, you get into a series, you just, so don't screw around with this crap. Just get them the hell out of there and get some other players and, try to compete for a title over the next 2-3 years before Embiid's, foot falls off or something. I mean, because he already had a bunch of injuries early in his career. How long do you think he's going to stay? I mean, it's kind of like Yao Ming. He played for like 7 years and then he was done because his health didn't hold up. Because you're not supposed to be 7'2". So.
Well, what's funny? Like we make fun of these people who do all this draft prep and tell you about these guys before the draft, and everything that was true about these guys before the draft is true now. Ben Simmons didn't have a very good attitude, didn't really care about the team, doesn't want to shoot, didn't want to shoot in practice in college. Okay, they knew all of this stuff about him before they drafted him. Embiid was injured in college. He's been injured the whole time in the NBA. Like, great player, Embiid would have been the number one pick if he was healthy, but again, gets injured all the time. So it's just kind of funny how they don't seem to look at this the way that it is. Like, this is your window right now. Like, Philadelphia, this is it. Like, you may not get, and we know Embiid's probably going to miss 20 games in the regular season anyway. You're probably not going to get another shot at this. So I just find it very, very just confusing. Anyway,
it does kind of speak to it does make you wonder, like, both in the NFL and the NBA, like, what are some of these people, like, when they're looking at this, what are they thinking? What are they seeing, or what are they not seeing that causes them to just, because people will do stuff. They're like, oh, well, this guy's going to do this, and it's like, yeah, but he didn't do that in college, or yeah, but he has this problem, or he has this. It's like, how are you not? I mean, the classic example of this is, remember when the Dolphins were coached by Cam Cameron and they drafted Ted Ginn with the number 9 pick or something? It's like, well, when you see this guy return a punt, it's like, bro, you drafted somebody number 9 in the draft because he's going to return. I mean, what the hell are you talking about?
And let me.
I just wonder what some of these people are thinking when they make some of these decisions. Like, I don't like the Bears drafting Mitch Trubisky. Like, what, over Deshaun Watson? Like, what the hell are you doing?
And Patrick Mahomes.
That's one of those things. Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, no, it's like, I love that you brought up drafting wide receivers, okay? So look at the Bengals and the Dolphins, right? They both took a wide receiver in the top 10, okay? The Bengals drafted Jamar Chase. Wow, Jamar Chase is tearing it up. You know why? He's got a quarterback. They can actually get him the ball, And so the Dolphins draft Jalen Waddle. He's useless, okay? They never throw the ball down the field.
He gets a bunch of catches when he plays with Tua, which has only been 2 games, but he doesn't have more than 70 yards a game.
Right. He runs 5 yards, catches the ball, and gets tackled. Like, we drafted this wide receiver. Why? We should have taken the left tackle, because the left tackle that they drafted, Austin Jackson, is now on the bench. So, they obviously, it's so funny. Again, the Dolphins have done this to us, where they brought in these guys. Oh, they're going to change things. Oh, wow, the team looks much better, blah, 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 blah. And then it's just a complete crap show. So,
yeah, well, again, that's one of those things where you just question the decisions that are being made, and the team's own view of itself. I mean, like I was talking about with the stats with the Dolphins, like, their defense kind of similar to last year. It's just last year they got a bunch of turnovers. It's like, well, guys, if I can read these stats on the internet, I'm sure you guys must have had these stats already. Like, how do you not?
Yeah. So, all right. So we're talking
how good you are. Like, I don't.
Yeah, we're talking football during the NBA preview. We got to stop that.
Sorry.
Anyway, all right. So here's my NBA questions for you, Clark.
Okay,
See how this grabs you. How big of a favorite are the Nets with or without Kyrie? Now, obviously, we know they're going to be without Kyrie, so that takes that part
well,
of the
favorite in Vegas, so we know that means that it's got to be that's gospel, right? That's
right.
How big? Well, how do you want me to say how big of a favorite are they?
You tell me.
Are they prohibitive?
In your mind, how big of a favorite are they to win the title?
I'm not going to put them prohibitive favorites, but I would say that like, I think you got to. I mean, they're the favorites. They're clear favorites. They're not prohibitive. That to me, it's clear because it's like if you have Durant and Harden healthy, like I don't think someone's going to beat them 4 times in 2 weeks. Like that's really what it comes down to. And it's not just someone, it's someone in the Eastern Conference. And it's not even that. It's can the Bucks or the 76ers beat them in a 7-game series? They possibly could. You could draw me a scenario where it could happen, and I could totally see it happening. Okay. And I would say that's a reasonable assessment. That's a reasonable argument. Okay. But if you're asking me if I'm going to bet money or who do I really, really think is going to win the Eastern Conference, the NBA, you cannot get overly complicated with it. Okay. Kevin Durant is now one of the best 75 players in the history of the league. So is James Harden, right?
Yep.
Okay. So and before that list even came out, we knew that they were two of the best scorers to ever play the game. Okay. So you have that. What do these other teams have? Okay. The Bucks have Giannis and, some, A, B+, A- guys, and they just play hard. They play good defense. And Chris Middleton, he played well last year in the playoffs. He made some big shots, whatever. But it's not like Chris Middleton's one of the best players you've ever seen. No. Okay. So that's the Bucks. They got that one guy. And Giannis is really dominant, and I don't think the Nets really have much to stop him. They didn't really last year, and the Nets still almost won. Okay. So, and then you got to go to the Sixers. Have they resolved the Ben Simmons situation yet? And what do they have around Embiid? And how healthy is Embiid in the playoffs? He was injured last year in the playoffs. Okay. So they're the clear favorites. I'm not going to say prohibitive just because I think that I guess maybe I have some questions about James Harden in the playoffs because he hasn't come up as big in the playoffs as you would expect given how talented he is. But I just think they're the clear favorites.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, to me, I think they're the favorites. I think we're trying to get cute, and everybody wants to come up with a new theory on, this team, blah, blah, blah. And everybody wants to jump on the Bucks bandwagon now, even though, does everyone forget in the playoffs they were getting criticized when they were winning? Like, does everybody forget that Atlanta series, before Giannis got injured? I'm at a bit of a loss. I'm not saying that Giannis isn't great. Giannis is obviously great. This isn't a debate about Giannis, but yeah. I mean, they barely pulled that off last year. And I'm not saying they're not legitimate champions. They absolutely are. They won it. Give them credit. And listen, is Brooklyn one sprained ankle or messed up hamstring away from being done? Yeah, they are. But so is every other team. So, so I just think, I think the Nets are the favorite. I don't see how you can look at it any other way because I can't forget what I saw in the playoffs last year when the Nets were basically almost beat.
I mean, guys, let's just draw this up. Okay. First of all. Okay. So the Bucks came out in the playoffs. They beat the crap out of Milwaukee or out of Miami, which of course they should. They're better than Miami. Okay. The next round, they got down 2-0, nearly got down 3-0. Okay. All right. And then it was 2-1, and then Kyrie gets hurt. Okay. And then you're like, oh, well, now, the Bucks should just walk away with this. And no, they didn't. It took them to game 7.
In overtime.
Durant his foot was on the line. Okay. If that was a 3, that would have ended the series. Okay. most likely ended the series. I mean, I think the Bucks got the ball back and then they had to make a shot, or they didn't make a shot. It went into overtime.
Right.
So, yeah, and then they played Atlanta and they were up. When did Giannis got hurt? They were up 2-1.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, 2-1. So then that series ends up going 7 or 6.
They beat him. I think they beat him in 6.
Okay, all right. They beat him without Giannis, so give them credit. But then they got down 2-0 to Phoenix, and Phoenix. I mean, basically, I think Chris Paul just gets worn down because he's a smaller player, and then he's got Drew Holiday on him playing good defense. So give them credit. But yeah, they were behind. They were behind in 2 of the series. I mean, they nearly lost to the Bucks. So yeah, I just and who knows, man, if in game 4 of the finals, if some things go a little bit differently, maybe Phoenix wins that and gets up 3-1. So,
Yeah, and listen, I want to be fair to everybody. Like, look, I'm not going to be sitting there rooting for Brooklyn to win. I understand it's become fashionable now to hate Brooklyn, especially because Kyrie Irving has gone completely off the reservation. I understand that people don't want them to win. They feel like they're trying to steal the championship. Everybody wants to root for the Bucks. Totally get that. And when they play, I will be rooting against them. Okay? I'm not saying I love the Nets. I want the Nets to win. I'm just saying if you're telling me, you put a gun to my head and ask me who's going to win the title, I'm taking Brooklyn, and I don't feel the least bit bad about it.
Yeah.
All right. Next, how much will the Lakers care about the regular season?
Well, they should care somewhat about it. I don't think they want to be going on the road for every series.
Right.
Given how old how freaking old their team is. I mean, look, I think they need to kind of figure out exactly how they want to play, But yeah, I mean, I am concerned about the Lakers. I feel like this reminds me of the team with Dwight Howard and Steve Nash and Kobe, and I feel like they're But I'm trying. Which year was that? No, wait. Actually, no. This feels like the. Yeah, I guess it feels kind of like that. It also maybe feels kind of like 2011 when they were kind of. You're like, I don't know if something seems a little off about them. They had just won 2 titles in a row, and you're like, okay, they played New Orleans in the playoffs. They beat the crap out of them, and then they got swept by Dallas. I don't know that there's a team in the Western Conference like that has a player like Dirk who can just go off like that. So I don't want to. And again, it's the NBA. You can't get too complicated. If they have Anthony Davis and LeBron, then, you got to figure they can probably get through the Western Conference, But again, I don't know if LeBron's going to stay healthy the whole year. I don't know if Anthony Davis is going to stay healthy. I mean, without Anthony Davis, forget it. We kind of agree on that. Forget it. Without Anthony Davis, you're not doing anything. But I also just have some concerns about the way this team's built. Their spacing to me seems like it's going to be a problem. Okay, against if there are teams that can space things out and really make them run around on defense, I have a lot of concerns because those guys are old. Carmelo Anthony's not a great defender. I mean, Russell Westbrook's still pretty athletic, but and again, there's the whole thing about are you going to have him play off the ball? Like, what do you? No, you can't have Russell Westbrook play off the ball. Now, Chris Broussard was talking about this when some people were saying, "Oh, well, Russell Westbrook's going to have to learn to do X." It's like that's not how this works. Okay, at a certain point, your game is your game, and that's just it. So Russell Westbrook's got to play like his game, which is weird because LeBron needs to have the ball in his hand because LeBron doesn't play off the ball that much. So yeah, I think they need to. I mean, it's not necessarily imperative that they get the number 1 seed, but you can't be getting a 7 seed again. I mean, because that's not going to be good. You guys can't be going on the road that much. The team's too old.
Yeah, I think they'll care, like you said, but I don't think they're going to go balls out in the regular season.
Yeah.
I think they'll care, and I think they'll try to get in the top 4, but I don't think they're going to be going crazy about it. And we'll see how it goes. I know everybody's going to chastise the Westbrook move, and everybody's thinks it's going to ruin the team or something, and I think it'll be fine. If you have LeBron, it'll be fine, and we'll see how it goes when they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I just see. Here's my thing. I think people don't want to there's some people that and it's kind of funny. You can almost compare this to Tom Brady. there were people like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago trying to say he was done, and like they were really early. And then there's other people who never want to say, oh, well, he can just keep playing and it'll be fine. With LeBron, like, I don't want to say it too early, but I don't want to say it too late when it's like, okay, he's not near the level that he used to be, a couple years ago. I don't know that we're totally there yet, but I kind of feel like that's next year at the latest. Like, I just kind of like, I'm, because he's in year 19. This is not how the NBA works. You don't just keep,
Yeah, no,
So-
I think this is the last shot. This is the last shot. If they don't win the champ, this is their last chance to win the title for the Lakers. If they don't win it this year, that's it. Like, they're not going to be able to win it anymore. Do you think the Warriors are real contenders? Or how real do you think the Warriors are? How do you feel about the Warriors? Give me your because we talked about this before.
Come back, and then kind of, but I just think they're relying on too many young guys. I do think like if they can, like against the Lakers, I think that they can make it tough on them because they'll move the ball and they've got shooting. So if you move the ball and you got shooting like that and you're shooting well, I think that's going to be tough for the Lakers to deal with because of their age. But, I don't know. Once you get past the Lakers, isn't it all kind of a jumbled mess of teams where you're like, I don't really know. Like you look at Phoenix, it's like, okay, they're good. Then you look at like Denver, they won't have Jamal Murray, I guess. So,
I think
it's like Utah. All right, we've seen Utah. You're going to put Rudy Gobert in there, and he's going to get torched by people because he can't cover the 3-point line. So, that's the problem. Once you get past the Lakers, it's like, it's just there's not a lot of teams that go, oh, okay, I think they're really, really good. Phoenix is good. They made the finals last year, but like they're still young, and there were still games last year that like could have gone either way that they almost blew. So it's like.
Yeah, I think the Warriors have become a sexy pick. Everybody wants to jump on the Warriors as if they're the old Warriors. I think they probably will be in the top 6 in the West.
I think they could probably do that. Yeah,
but I don't buy them as real contenders. No, I don't think
young guys. And then people forget that like the way those other teams were like, the first year they won it, they had a bunch of guys around Stephen Clay that made a lot of sense, and it made the whole team work. And then they had Kevin Durant, who's one of the best scorers we've ever seen, and it's just that's what people forget. They act like, well, it was just so they just got Kevin Durant and it was totally unfair. No, they needed Kevin Durant because they needed someone to be able to just create offense whenever he needs it, because it's not Stephen Clay. They can sort of do that, but it's not on the same level as a guy like Kevin Durant can do. Okay, because they needed that because they just can't, necessarily create all these easy buckets. So, yeah, they'll be good, but I don't, you need some of those younger guys to develop, and that's, that doesn't come right off the bat.
Yeah, so you talked about Vegas odds earlier. It's Brooklyn, Milwaukee, the Lakers, Golden State.
Well, remember, Vegas, they're setting the odds because, people are going to bet on stuff. It has nothing to do with who's really going to win. So,
right, everybody loves the Warriors. I get it, and I love them too. I think they're a blast. They're so great to watch. Blah blah blah. But I don't buy this nonsense. They're real contenders. I think the Lakers, Utah, and Phoenix are the 3 best teams in the West, and I don't really think. I think that's how it's going to be decided. What other teams do you like, or what other teams do you think could make some noise in the playoffs? Maybe not win the championship, but what are you looking towards this year?
Trying to think, like, Phoenix, depending on Phoenix could potentially get back to the Western Conference Finals. Like, if you think about it, because now if they get a high seed and then the Lakers get, like the 4 seed or the 3 seed or something, or the 1 seed, who knows, and they don't have to play the Lakers until the Western Conference Finals, they could totally get there. Because, you look at these other teams, it's like, I feel like in a 7-game series, they could potentially beat Utah. Did they Did Phoenix get another big guy to back up DeAndre Ayton?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, because that
I
was
feel
a
like they
problem.
should.
I mean, hopefully they did, but you know, I
Yeah,
mean, it can't be Saric because I think he tore his ACL in the finals, so
yeah,
he's not going to be back this year.
yeah.
So, but we could see a scenario where they could get back to the Western Conference Finals, not having to play the Lakers and the Clippers. Like, we don't even need to talk about the Clippers; they don't have Kawhi, so forget it. You know, but yeah, they could potentially get back there. I mean, that's Utah. Um, Maybe, I don't know. It depends. I mean, are they going to stick with the Rudy Gobert thing until they lose again? Like,
Well, but I honestly, I think that series against that game against the Clippers, that was an anomaly. I think people are pointing it out like, oh, Utah just can't get it done. See what happened, and I think that's kind of ridiculous. I think Mitchell was not 100%. Conley was out, and then he finally came back, and he wasn't the same guy that he had been because he was injured. And
yeah,
so I think we're making way too much about the fact they blew a big lead in a game. Okay, that happens sometimes. They did get Rudy Gay, so he can play a little bit of small ball five if they have to. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if they figure that out in the regular season. But I really like Utah. I think Utah would have beaten Phoenix if they'd have played them. So that's a team that I'm thinking could make some serious noise.
yeah,
Obviously Dallas. I think Dallas.
yeah. But did they get any better?
Maybe marginally, but maybe Luka just has a crazy MVP year, and who knows like you just said, the West, who's really
Yeah, it's true.
stepping up.
There's
So I
no
think you're
the
not.
Eastern Conference. I mean, I don't. Look. I think it's the Eastern Conference. I'm picking Brooklyn to win the East, but it's between Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. Um, you know, Miami, we're obviously Heat fans. If they get a 4 or 5 seed, I would like them against a team like Atlanta or the Knicks or whoever else would be there. I don't know, Indiana or whoever else would be. Like, I think they could beat them, but in a series um, against Milwaukee, obviously, I don't really like that. And it's obviously a series against Brooklyn. I don't think that's going to happen. Philadelphia, you know, I don't know. Maybe because Philadelphia kind of they haven't really hit their potential yet. Maybe Miami could give them a series, but
Well, there's a
that,
couple. There's two things the Heat need if they're going to try to compete. In the East with the major teams, there's two things that have to happen. Number one, Tyler Hero has to play like he did as a rookie, or take another step. The other
yeah,
thing, the other thing is Oladipo's got to come back from the injury, and by the playoffs, be playing somewhat anything like if he's 75% of what he used to be. That's what gives him. That's what would give him a shot. Because defensively, if they have Oladipo with Butler and Bam and Kyle Lowry and PJ Tucker, they would be really good. And that would be
okay,
really difficult for teams to stop them. So that's what they would need if they're going to contend. If that doesn't happen, then they're going to be somewhere in the top six, and
yeah.
they're probably not going to be able to beat any of those teams. Do you
That's
think?
why. Well, if you ask how important is the regular season for the Heat, it's really important. You
Right.
get the highest seed you possibly can, so you can avoid some of those other teams. So
Yeah. So, do you think Ben Simmons will get traded before the trade deadline in February?
he has. I mean, they got. You're not going to keep him around. I mean, come on. Like, Daryl Morey can try to spin all this crap, but eventually it's going to be like, dude, just move. Like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I just think you got to get him the hell out of there and move on.
Yeah,
But
I think I definitely think Daryl Morey, a part of him thinks he can figure this out and salvage it. He probably still thinks that some part of him still thinks we can fix Ben Simmons. I don't think he can. I don't think he's got any chance of doing that. So I kind of think, I would say that if he's just out and doesn't play, then I would think, you know, I can't figure out what makes sense. Like you would think, well, if he's never going to play, you're just going to have to get rid of him. But then I would think, well, in order to trade him, he probably has to play, right? He's probably got to show
yeah,
something. So I have a hard time believing they're going to go the entire season with this and go into the off season. It just blows my mind. I would be shocked if he's still on the team at the end of the
Right.
season. It just blows my mind. Do you think this is the year Luka can win the MVP, or who do you like for MVP?
Well, I'm trying to think about the MVP voting. I mean, they normally they're going to give it to a team that's like a high seed in the playoffs, right?
Right.
But they're going to give it to the player who's on a team that's a high seed in the playoffs. So maybe just based on that, maybe not. I mean, I'm trying to. So obviously, you'd have Luka. You'd probably have Giannis in there. Um, maybe LeBron gets some votes.
I think Durant has a shot because if Kyrie's out the whole year.
Yeah, I could see that maybe. Team, some of the writers might be kind of like, well, we don't really, they got Durant and Harden, so do we really want to? But with Kyrie out, maybe. I guess Embiid probably gets some consideration too.
Right.
And then you probably just got to watch out for Jokic because I mean he just won it, so I think the writers kind of get into a thing where they like giving it to somebody 2 years in a row, but he has to have like one of the problems is once you win it once, you usually got to have a better year than the year you won it to win it again. So.
Right, and last year nobody was healthy, so that really helped Jokic that he played every game. And obviously, without Jamal Murray, he's going to be doing the whole song and dance the whole season. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah, I think that's an underrated story. Like Jokic does have a chance to kind of win it again. Yeah, I think people may be going back to Giannis. We'll see. I think what Dallas would need to do is they need to get in the top four. He would just have to have historical, ridiculous numbers like he usually does. And but we'll see. A team that I think is really interesting is Atlanta because they have a lot of talent. I mean, the talent on that team is insane. They've got Trae Young, they've got DeAndre Hunter, they've got John Collins, they've got Kevin Herter, they've just got talent all over the place, and I think they're in the exact right place to make a trade. They have the assets. If somebody becomes available, they have what teams would want. They have a lot of stuff that they could move. So I think it's a fascinating team from a talent standpoint. And if there's injuries to the major teams in the East, they're really dangerous. Because as long as Trae Young is healthy, they don't really have anybody that you have to really worry about. It's not like, oh, well, if we lose this guy or whatever, they can lose a guy or two and still be really good. So right. I'm really interested in them. I think Chicago could be an interesting team, and this kind of leads into my next question. I think Chicago could be decent, but I think they're not gonna be very good on defense. So we'll see how it goes with that. I like the fit with having Lonzo Ball on the team. I'm not sure about what if DeMar DeRozan actually helps them or if that was just kind of a waste of money. But so I've heard this a few places, and I just totally disagree with it. Do you think the Eastern Conference is actually good this year? I'm not going to ask if it's better than the West because I think that's ridiculous. But what do you think about the Eastern Conference compared to previous years?
I mean, it's not horrible. I don't think it's horrible. I mean, okay, so Brooklyn, the Bucks, and the Sixers at the top. Okay, and they're good. I mean, the Sixers can probably be better once they work out the Ben Simmons thing. Miami, they're a solid team. They're a playoff team, potentially 4 seed. Maybe higher depending on how the regular season goes. You mentioned Atlanta; they're really good. The Knicks are not a contender, but Thibodeau has them playing hard. They'll probably make the playoffs again. Right. I don't think you're going to have at the bottom of the conference, you may have teams that are like floating right around 500, but that's like the last 2 or 3 teams. I mean, those other teams are good. You've got some contenders and then you've got some solid teams. So it's not terrible. It's not like the Eastern Conference circa 2002 or something. Right. But in terms of being better than the West, I mean, You got the Lakers, the Suns, the Jazz. I mean, the West. I think the West is better than the East, but is it like really? Is it some ridiculous Is it some ridiculous gap? I don't think so. I mean, the East could maybe be potentially closer to it, but I mean, not really. I mean, and then you think about it, the Lakers, if Anthony Davis gets hurt, like forget it. Okay, so then you just throw the Lakers out of there, and then you got those other teams, which are kind of, Utah and Denver and Phoenix, and you can kind of throw them into a mix together. Then you got those other teams at the bottom like Dallas, and I don't even know Dallas and Golden State. Like they're I think the two conferences aren't that far. They're not that far apart. I don't think it's not as bad as it used to be.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the conferences are as far apart, but to people telling me the East is going to be really good, I think it's ridiculous. I don't think I think it's going to be a bunch of it's a bunch of teams with some holes, and I don't think the Eastern Conference is going to be as fantastic as people think. So a couple of teams that I'm out on. Okay, I'm out on the
Okay.
Boston Celtics. I'm out.
Yeah.
Okay, like you
They
got
needed to make a move a couple years ago, really. I
right.
mean, like keep Jason Tatum, move Jaylen Brown, and try to get some others.
Right. You got Al Horford. Congratulations. I don't think Boston is, they may be able to get into the top 8, but these people telling me that Boston's going to be really good because they managed to pick up Dennis Schroeder, get out of here. I'm out on that. The second team I'm out on is the Clippers. Kawhi's not coming back. Just get over it. Stop. Don't. I heard one of these games. Well, Kawhi. They were saying on Inside the NBA. That's what it was. Well, Kawhi might be back by March at the earliest. But he's not coming
They did
back.
this with Klay Thompson. Stop.
Right.
Okay. Remember Colin, like, oh, well, he tore his ACL in June. Okay. And then Colin's like, oh, he'll be back. And, at first it was March. Right. And then I feel like a couple of weeks later on his show, he's like, it's February. And then it's like, oh, well, by the end of January. It's like, guys, that is not how this works. Okay.
Yep.
Like, and second of all, it's different comparing it to because you saw like Joe Burrow tore his ACL, and he tore his ACL and his MCL, and he was back at the start of the season. Now, granted, he had a little bit more time, but at the same time, it's not like he's an NBA player who's literally running around and cutting and starting and stopping, and that's not really. I mean, there obviously is some of that as a quarterback, because you got to take the snap and back up and whatever, but it's not the same thing. So, guys, no, he's not coming back. Okay, nor should he. By the way, he shouldn't. You need as much time as you can to get yourself back. So
Yeah, I'm out on the Clippers. I think maybe they could get into the top 8, but I don't think they're.
they could potentially make the playoffs. I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think they're legit at all. Portland, I don't see it. Maybe they're better than the Clippers. Maybe they're not. I just don't. I don't have any faith in that team. And the rest, the rest.
What we need is Portland playing Golden State,
right,
in a series, or just a play-in tournament or something.
Right. Yeah,
that's what we need.
Yeah, and my argument about the conferences is, well, look at some team that might get into the top 8. It's like Portland and the Clippers. There's no Portland, Clippers, Dallas in the Eastern Conference. Those teams don't exist. So I just don't think. I think the 6, 7, 8, 9 teams in the West are just way better than the teams in the East. So
yeah, I mean, I guess because you have Damian Lillard, who's a really, really all-time great player, and then you have Luka, who's a MVP candidate. You don't really in the Eastern Conference. You have maybe the Nets have an MVP candidate, and maybe the top three teams have an MVP candidate. Outside of that, no. There's no, the Heat. Heat are good; they're a solid team, but they don't have an MVP candidate on their team. So,
all right. So, how many teams do you think can actually win the championship? Let's cut through all the BS. How many teams are you going to say can win the championship?
All right. We'll go Lakers, Nets. Those two, I think we kind of, we got that. Bucks. All right. All right. God, I mean, beyond those three, like I can make a case for the Sixers, but I'm just kind of waffling because I don't know how healthy Embiid's going to be, and I don't know if Daryl Morey's going to work the whole thing out. I mean, it's those three. I could make a case for a few other teams. I feel like you could make a case for the 76ers. You could make a case for I guess you could make a case for Phoenix.
Yeah, I have 5. I have Brooklyn and Milwaukee in the East, Lakers, Phoenix, Utah in the West.
Okay. I can agree with that. Yeah. Okay.
I think
Like you can make an argument for the 76ers, but I'm not really. It's one of those things where I'd be like, okay, fine. If someone argues that, I would be like, okay, fine. But I think it's probably
them. They're a if team. If they make a move with Ben Simmons and work it out to improve their roster, sure. I think Atlanta's an if team. If Atlanta pulls off some great trade and they get Bradley Beal or something, okay, then maybe that changes things. I think Denver, if Jamal Murray comes back and is able to get himself into decent shape by the playoffs, I give them an outside look at it, especially if the teams in front of them.
Utah could beat the Lakers in the playoff series.
Do I think they could beat them in a playoff series?
Yeah, you could make an argument for it. No, okay.
I can make an argument for it, but do I think it's going to happen? No. I would say if the Lakers are fully healthy, I don't think Utah is going to beat them. But I don't think the Lakers are solid either because anybody could get injured. And, who the hell knows? Maybe this Westbrook thing completely blows up and they trade him. Because I got news. If this doesn't work out we get to January and this is just a disaster, LeBron's going to be like, get guys out of here. LeBron's going to make them make moves. So I think, that's the only reason I say that. I think the Lakers are flawed. I still think they're the favorite in the West. I would pick them ahead of everybody else. All right. So, yeah, I think it's going to be, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a great season. I really think it's interesting. I think there's several teams, like last season, there's several teams with a shot, which makes this really fascinating. So I think it's going to be an awesome season to watch and ups and downs, and we'll see how it goes. So the NBA top 75.
There we go.
So
this has been controversial. There's been some. Matter of fact, you people listening, you should try to go on YouTube and see if you can find Reggie Miller reacting to because he was doing. I think he was doing a game, and they had the TNT guys. It was the normal guys. Dwayne Wade was there too, which was kind of cool because he was on the list too. So they're like they go to Reggie Miller. They're like, hey, congratulations. Reggie's like, what on what? They're like, you made the 75 list. He's like, really? Wow. Okay. He was kind of shocked, which I thought was kind of funny because people in the day since the list came out, people were like, I don't know if you put Reggie Miller on there. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was a really cool reaction. So it's the 75th anniversary of the NBA, and so they had a bunch of I guess it was a bunch of media people or ex-coaches or I don't know.
I don't even know.
I don't know who really voted. I mean, Stephen A. Smith was saying he voted, and then Brian Windhorst was saying he voted. So I think a bunch of the NBA media got to vote on it. Howard Beck, I think a bunch of them voted on it. So it was the best 75 players for the last 75 years. Now, that's not exactly how they did the list. So the NBA did their 50th anniversary team in 1996 or 1997. So they basically took the 50. They took those 50. They added a couple guys from who played back then or prior to then. I think they added Dominique Wilkins and they added a few different guys to that. And then they added, the rest, from players that we would all know that played after that. And so, I went through the list, and I'm not going to do the thing where we just name players and we go, this guy should have made it because of blah blah blah. I'm going to tell you first who I would have taken off. Okay. The guys that I
in the list in the first place. Yeah.
What?
Or who you would have not included in the first place.
Exactly. So right. The guys that I thought that were, I thought there were two guys that were at borderline at best, and I don't think I would not have put them on the list in favor of other guys. Anthony Davis and Damian Lillard. There's a third guy that I probably would have chosen somebody else, and that was Dennis Rodman. So look, I'm not saying those guys aren't great players, and they may not end up in the top 75 at some point. Like I just don't. I just think if you're stopping it now and you're saying this is the list, that's what I would have done. So I'm hearing everybody. This is the part that bothers me about this is that the guy who everyone's complaining about that I agree with, and who the biggest snub from the list was everybody's going crazy about Dwight Howard, and I hate defending Dwight Howard. I think he's kind of a dumbass. Not a fun guy to root for, and basically is hated by lots of NBA fan bases.
Because I didn't know all the stats when people pointed him out. They said he was he won Defensive Player of the Year 3 times,
4 times.
And he was like, and he was All NBA
8 times.
8 times or something. Yeah. So that's kind of his peak was, exceptional. I mean, totally exceptional. I mean, people like the year they made the finals, he beat LeBron, and LeBron averaged, like Nick Wright pointed this out. There was a series he averaged like 38 and 11 or something like that.
Right.
And the Magic didn't have any other star on that team.
Right.
So that's kind of
he's the best. He was the best player on a finals team. And that, I wouldn't. You can't say that. Damian Lillard, Anthony. I mean, you could go to the bubble and say Anthony Davis is the best player on that team if you want, but I think that's highly debatable. There was a time period where Dwight Howard was in the MVP conversation every year.
Yeah.
For 7 or 8 years, there was a period of time where people were debating, wow, would you take LeBron to start a team or would you take Dwight Howard? Now I realize centers have gone completely out of fashion, in the last 10 years. So people look at this completely differently. But to me, Dwight Howard's resume is way beyond the other 3 guys that I just named. We could debate Rodman if you want, great rebounder, but Dwight Howard did so many other things that were great. That I think, and I'm not talking about Dwight Howard. Basically, you're looking at it like this. You have to pretend Dwight Howard's career stopped after he left Houston.
Yeah.
Okay? From that point on, he's not in the
He's been nowhere near the same.
At best, he's a role player. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about where were you at your best, because that's what matters on this list. The other guys that I was kind of surprised at was Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. Neither one of them made it. And if it were me, I would have picked Ginobili first. That's just my opinion from watching them play. And I'm not gonna comment on guys that I didn't see play. That's why I'm not bringing up any old players who played in the 70s. I'm not, or earlier than that. I'm not going to debate that. I'm going to let the people who saw them, they can debate that. I'm not talking about that. I'm going to talk about guys that I saw. So the other guys that I thought either should have made it or were really close were Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter.
Make the case for both of those guys, because I can sort of understand it, but I mean, I know Vince Carter played a lot of years, and he was an all-star and he was really good. Like, make the case for me on those guys.
Okay, so look, Ginobili, one of the best players on championship teams. He never won the MVP. He never won. He came off the bench a lot, and I understand people downgrade him because of that. But he was clearly one of the best 3 players on that team, and they're not winning those championships without him.
That's true.
I realize we can't include his international resume, which is ridiculous. But we can't. But that's not what part of this list. To me, I thought he was one of the most influential players. What he did really mattered. He was the one who really brought the Euro step into the NBA. So there's also the growth of the game type thing with him. One of the best international players for sure. I thought, Tracy McGrady was spectacular. I thought for several years he was right there with Kobe as, guys who carried their team to the playoffs. And, he carried some bad teams into the playoffs. And, he got the team in Houston when they had Yao Ming. They were really good. He wasn't a finals MVP or anything like that. But I thought he was spectacular. And I think, just kind of
Well,
remembering him, I thought he should
Hall
be
of
on the
Fame.
list.
I mean, I know I guess that's different voters who are voting on it, but he did get into the Hall of Fame.
Well, all these guys are going to get into the Hall of Fame, but I just think if you're telling me like you're comparing right now Tracy McGrady to Damian Lillard or Anthony Davis, I just think Tracy McGrady was carrying teams into the playoffs and winning playoff games. I just don't, yes, Lillard has had some playoff runs. I get it.
Well, do you think, okay, say they make another list in 25 more years and it's the 100 greatest players, would you put Damian Lillard on that list then?
He
Assuming
probably makes the top 100 for sure.
Okay.
And he might, maybe finish his career in a different way and he's in the top 75. I don't know. I mean, Vince Carter, I don't have as much of a problem with him not making it, but, how spectacular of a player he was. And at the time, going back into the 2000 to 2010 era, when he stopped, and again, with him, you kind of have to, after he kind of leaves New Jersey, he's not really, that's not really what we're talking about if we're talking about Vince Carter. He was pretty much a role player after that. But, played in a bunch of games, played for 21 years. The slam dunks, I mean, you replay his slam dunks on YouTube all the time. So I thought Vince Carter was close, but to me, the guys that I was Dwight Howard, Ginobili, and McGrady, I thought were the three guys that I would have put in over the, and I told you the three that I would take off.
So just to be clear, so those three guys, and then you would have taken out Rodman,
Anthony Davis, and Damian Lillard.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think that's fair. I understand that. That makes sense.
Listen, I know everybody. I know Ray Allen and Reggie Miller. I know we love them, but let's be honest. Ray Allen is on the list because he made that shot in the finals. Reggie Miller's on the list because of all the playoff games against the New York Knicks. I don't know if I think they're closer to 75 than they are to 60. I'll say that. I don't have a problem with them making the list, but I'm just saying acting as if they're shoo-ins is, yes, okay, they made all the threes, but threes they're more important now than they were when they played. So it's not the same. It's not the same. 3-pointers aren't the same don't hold the same place in the game that they did, especially when Reggie Miller played. Reggie Miller shot 4-5 threes a game, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different now. Was he great in the playoffs? Absolutely. But there's a couple other guys that we can talk about that I think are interesting. I don't think they get on the list in my mind, but I think they're interesting, and that's Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson. So Andre Iguodala came out and said that Kyrie Irving is top 20 all time, which okay, that's nonsensical. I wouldn't have put him in the top 75. That's just my personal view.
Why not?
Kyrie? I don't think his resume is enough. He didn't make that many All NBA teams. He never made first team All NBA. He's got the shot in the finals, and yes, that's the reason why anyone would consider him. But he's playing with LeBron, and I think Klay Thompson to me gets downgraded for the same reason. He played on an unbelievable team. If he doesn't win those championships, we're not having a discussion about Klay Thompson getting on this team because he's a good player. But Klay Thompson was never in the top 15, 20 players in the NBA. So I think Kyrie Irving, you could argue, okay, he was a top 10 player.
Well, you can see the talent. I mean, right. Especially he's just as talented as tons of other people on that list, maybe more talented than some of them. But yeah, I just kind of want to me, I feel like you gotta really pile up he was on the All NBA team a bunch of times. Or he was on the first team 5 times and the third team 6 times, whatever the case is. I feel like you gotta pile those up and then MVPs and then just it's not necessarily that you gotta win a playoff series or win championships.
It's matter.
What you win the playoffs.
Yeah,
Damian Lillard, I can understand if people are I don't think he belongs on the list yet, and I'm okay. But I think, he's going to finish his career in the Hall of Fame. And then by the time he's all done, I think even if he doesn't win a championship, say he stays in Portland the rest of his career and he keeps dragging those teams to the playoffs and making clutch shots and stuff I think eventually you could say he's on that list. But Anthony Davis, I was just kind of guys, that just feels like a projection. And I feel like you're just doing that because he just won a championship. And it's like, yeah, but he's kind of injured a lot. And,
And
granted, Bill Walton was injured like his whole career, and he made the list.
Well, yeah, and when they listen, and when they did the top 50, they put Shaq on there, even though Shaq had not achieved that level yet. They put him on there because they were projecting. So I think some projection is allowed, but I'm like, if you're asking me, I'm taking Tracy McGrady's career every time over Anthony Davis's career. I just think, or Kyrie Irving's career. I just think that's ridiculous. Klay Thompson. Yeah, I don't even think Klay Thompson comes into the Kyrie Irving discussion. Like I just, I think he's really good player, but I don't think he makes the top
really
75.
Good shooter, and he's a really good defender. But yeah, I mean, Kyrie Irving is a great. He's got a great handle on the ball. He can drive to the basket. He can shoot. He's got incredible one-on-one moves. Like
great, one of the greatest scorers ever. He's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not a shot at Kyrie. Kyrie is spectacular. I think he's a moron and a knucklehead. But on the basketball court, Kyrie is. I mean, there's nothing like it. A couple of guys that I didn't see play a lot, but I know about that I think were interesting that people brought up were Alex English and Bernard King. Now, Bernard King is one of those guys who his career was cut short due to injury, but he averaged 30 points a game as a scorer, like in the 80s. So it's not as if, you average, first of all, you average 30 points in the NBA, you're something. You do it in 1985, that's something else. Like, he was amazing. The problem was, he got injured and then he was never really the same. So he really only has about a 3 or 4 year period where people would really talk about him. It's kind of, now I've heard several people let's just talk about Alex English first. Great scorer, again, kind of like Bernard King, just scored like crazy on the Denver Nuggets in the 80s. I didn't see him play, so I can't make an argument, but I've heard several people make an argument that they thought he was really spectacular. I heard a couple people make the argument about Bill Walton. Like Kendrick Perkins went on First Take and was saying that Dwight Howard should have gotten in over Bill Walton. And so here's my thing with Bill Walton. Yes, his career was cut short due to injury. Yes, he didn't win as much as some of the other guys. But the time that he played, there's an argument he was the best player in the league for 3 years. He won the league MVP. He won the finals MVP. Like, he was spectacular. So, yes, he only played for a short period of time, and then he kind of came and played a little bit in Boston with the Celtics. But the time he was in the league, I mean, he was insane. Yeah. People thought he might be the greatest player ever, when he was playing at the time. Dwight Howard never had discussions about him being the greatest player ever. So anyway, I guess we could say I could do my own list. We could say that, but honestly, I think, overall, though, I got to say, I thought they did a really good job. Like,
I think for the most part, I don't really have a problem with anybody on the list. Yep. I can understand if people are mad that Dwight Howard got snubbed, but outside of that, I mean, you brought up the point about Manu Ginobili. That's a really good point. I think overall they did it. Obviously you get LeBron on there, you get Dwayne Wade on there, you get Kobe on there posthumously. You get Dirk on there, obviously Steve Nash. And like I said, I hope when they release lists, I hope they do something at the All-Star game again where they get all the players who are alive, they get them out there and line them up. I think that's really cool. We're old enough to remember watching the All-Star game in 1996 when they did that with the top 50 players. So.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I spent some time on it. I enjoyed it, and I'm interested to hear what other people say. But yeah, man, I think it's gonna be a great season. Go Heat. Did anything else you want to do? You want to go over?
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, we covered what's going on in the NFL this week. Any big games?
I'm sure the Dolphins will find a way to lose again. But
Dolphins are playing the Falcons.
Yeah, well, listen, we lost to Jacksonville. There's no gimmies. There's no. Oh well. I mean, listen. I thought they had a chance to do something this season. They're terrible. I don't know what happened. They are just awful.
Well, it was a mirage. They weren't as good. They weren't anywhere near as good as we thought.
Yep. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Any questions, for us? Put them in the comments. We can maybe go over them for next time.
Yeah.
But don't be ridiculous out there. Enjoy your sports. Take care.
All right.